Hello everyone, can anyone hear me?
Hey, Sammy, I can hear you. Can you go full screen on your application, Sammy, please?
Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much everyone for having the time to attend this short seminar, I hope. We'll be talking today about GA4 for e-commerce marketers, and we're going to explore a little bit about the power of Google Analytics 4. I hope everyone's doing well, and thank you so much for attending. And we can get started right away. First of all, we'd like to focus on a little bit about the futures of GA4 and its advantages in comparison to Universal Analytics, the old version of Google Analytics, I would say. And we're also going to be talking about 7 key points that every e-commerce leader should know about GA4. And a little bit after this slide, we will be talking about a demo, an actual demo of a GA4 account provided by Google, just as dummy data to explore how the GA4 interface works. And at the very end, we're going to be talking and asking questions about how we can improve upon that. All right, we can get started right here with the point, the fact that GA4 provides marketers and website owners with valuable insights into user behavior on their websites and apps. We can see here a little bit of the GA4 real-time report where you can see where your users are coming from, what device are they using, and how many users were actually on your site in the last 30 minutes. So this is just a preview of the real-time report. GA4 in general is, you can describe it as a tool that would let you know when your users are using your website, how are they using it, and understanding the user's interactions on your website as well. So it gives you a little bit of an insight about demographics of the users that come to your website and how are they actually navigating to your website. So it basically allows the marketers to segment their audience based on demographic data and patterns that connects these segments together. You can also create custom audience segments and identify different user groups with distinct characteristics. So basically, you can know who is using your website and what brings them together. And marketers can create these segments for different age groups. Recently, Google has been introducing this new age group segmentation, and based on these interests and based on this information, a marketer can personalize his website or product into the segment that it appeals to the most. We mostly want to deliver highly targeted messages to the users who use our website so we can improve engagement and conversion rates. Moving on to another point of the fact that GA4 is really designed to be more forward compatible with emerging technologies and tracking requirements. Um, in comparison to Universal Analytics, we have here a little comparison between the two. We can see that Google Analytics works as well on apps, like it can use an app SDK, and you can connect the analytics to your Android app or iOS app as well, while Universal Analytics was only focused on websites. Google Analytics 4 also provides greater flexibility when defining and segmenting audience. You couldn't really do that as much as you would think in Universal Analytics because it had really limited flexibility in audience creation. Right now in Google Analytics, you can define lots of customized, personalized segments and deliver using Google Ads, personalized ads into these segments of customers. Google Analytics has a little bit of a limited, I would say, out of the box reports. You do have to spend some time creating different reports for different segments and custom dimensions, things like that. You would want to group the data together yourself mostly. While Universal Analytics did have a lot of predefined reports out of the box, you didn't really have to create a lot of custom reports in order to reach the information that you needed. So this is a little bit of a GA4 drawback where you have to get someone to actually set up some reports for you. Google Analytics 4 also provides some events already set up for you out of the box, while Universal Analytics has no events coming out of the box. You still have to create most of the events yourself with the help of someone that can define these events for you. Universal Analytics has been like sunset by Google for a while. GA4 has started working since June 2023, so at this point, it's a mandatory step for businesses to start to move to GA4. Moving on to the events that Google GA4 defines by default, and we can speak a little bit about what are events and what do they mean. So basically, an event is an if condition that is defined either by you or Google that you can set up on your Google Analytics 4 account when someone or a user does trigger that if condition on your website. GA4 sends that event into your reports so you can know when has someone did this like download or downloaded a file or try to engage with a video, try to add an item to the cart or try to view an item. We'll be speaking about the e-commerce events in just a little bit, but basically the events mean predefined if conditions that users can set up when these users or customers visit your website and trigger these events. It will then be recorded on your GA4 account. You can see here that there are 7 events set up by Google by default. We have here page views, scrolls, outbound clicks, site search, video engagement, and file downloads. I'm sorry, there are 6. 6 events come out of the box. Page views is basically any page that gets viewed on your website is triggered with its URL and recorded into your GA4 account. Scrolls, you can define these as someone scrolls 50% of your page, it will then trigger that. So it's kind of an indicator that users have engaged with your content or read through your content. Outbound clicks are set up on links that would lead you to somewhere else outside of the website that you have, maybe going to a Facebook post or Instagram post or anything like that. It will record that as well. Site search is any kind of event that would let a user search for a product, for example, on your website. Video engagement is any video being played on your website. With file downloads, pretty straightforward. If someone tries to download a file of your website, it will be recorded as well. These predefined events come outside of the box, but you would have to set up more events if you want to track e-commerce events. E-commerce events are mostly the core events for any e-commerce website. Some of these are view item. It would then, this event would send what item is being viewed into Google Analytics 4. Add to cart does the same, but when the user adds a product into the cart, with begin checkout being the step, I would say, for a user to start checking out with his order, and checkout complete would mark a purchase being completed. These are the fundamental events. There are other events that can be set up to show more about the steps that users take during their e-commerce journey. Moving on to the integration with Google Ads. Mostly big part of why people use Google Analytics 4 is the easy and seamless integration with Google Ads. It basically allows marketers to enhance their advertising strategies based on the GA4 audiences that gets recorded within GA4. So basically, you can automatically share the data between Google Ads and GA4, and this would then be able to target a segment that does convert and you can maybe upsell to them. You can try to push some sort of demographic that is working best for your website and basically try to upsell on these and things like that. You can also track how many Google Ads impressions were tracked in GA4, how many clicks. Um, what does this ad cost, or the cost per click as well. So it gives you a really good insight into what you need to do with your ads strategy. Moving on a little bit to a thing that is most important to me, I would say, the Looker Studio integration with Google Analytics 4. Basically, Looker Studio is very similar to Tableau and Power BI in the idea of building dashboards that summarize information that you would like to know. Instead of having to dig through a lot of GA4 reports in order to reach a question that you would try to answer, mostly Looker Studio is going to help you with that, with the fact that you can build dashboards that summarize this information for you and also be able to visualize it in the way that you want. So I had this example of the internet. We can see here at a glance how many users are visiting our website, how many sessions, how many page views were triggered by these users and events and things like that. Summarizing the landing page, what is the most visited landing page, things like that. So you can basically try to um, understand information really quickly and with predefined charts that you can create within Looker Studio that might not necessarily be available on GA4 directly. So you can basically design it to whatever you need it to be and summarize information and insights. As well, with colleagues, you can share this dashboard with anyone that you would want to get access to this kind of summary for your website's data. Moving on a little bit about the machine learning integrations for GA4. GA4 right now is currently testing some beta predictive metrics, I would say. These show you when you would get a purchase and what kind of segment would be probably purchasing this kind of product that you are trying to market for your website. It's pretty beta, like it's pretty in the early stages of development. So G4 doesn't really have that much going into this direction of machine learning, but it's a good start. It basically anticipates users' behavior and optimizes their strategies accordingly. Its current abilities are still kind of limited, but it's like a very good start, I would say, for Google to start integrating some machine learning into their GA4 platform. Moving on a little bit to the audience building and segmentation abilities within GA4. As we said at the start of the presentation, GA4 introduces a lot of new abilities into segmentation and defining the audience that you would like to dive deep into their insights and their data. You can understand right now the user behavior or the user base more comprehensively, I would say. You can create custom audiences based on this kind of condition. For example, you would want to see how many inactive users in the last 7 days, users who did visit your website before but now are inactive for 7 days. Maybe you can use this kind of segment to push it into Google Ads to try to resurrect these inactive users and push them into your website again. You can target registered users, users who did have an account and logged into it and probably did some kind of event on your website. So you can kind of chase those down with some personalized ads as well on Google Ads. So basically, you can segment the users based on any condition that you can find on GA4 and maybe push some notifications to them to try to drive them back into the website again or make them returning customers. Moving on a little bit to the custom dimensions. A new feature in GA4 having the custom dimensions, which are kind of data points that you throw around your website, and you can see which users actually trigger these kind of data points throughout their visit on the website. So you can collect additional information about user interactions, events, and sessions that might not be captured by default in GA4. So we can have here a little bit of a custom dimension about ad frequency, how many ads or how many ads per week, for example, does this user get, the frequency of ads shown into this user, things like that. You can identify some data points that you can add into your GA4 account to enrich the information that you can see there. You can track whether the user was a new user or a returning user, someone who did visit your website before. Was he a logged in user or wasn't logged in when he visited, things like that. So you can compare how many users were logged in versus those who weren't. So this kind of information is very important or relevant for your business. They can also identify if the user visited a blog post or visited a product page, for example. So you can identify which kind of section of your website is the most intriguing for users or most interesting to users, I would say. Moving on to a little bit about the conversion modeling and allowing marketers to analyze the conversion journey, since our GA4 usage is mostly focused on e-commerces. GA4 introduces the ability to identify total purchasers and the revenue that you can see from these users as well. This was available in Universal Analytics, but it has been kind of enriched GA4 with the fact that you can also connect to identify how much you were kind of spending to get that kind of purchase. So this was like an integration between this kind of information, so you can identify how much does it cost to actually get a purchase off your website. You can also monitor things like average order value for users, how many times they do purchase in comparison to how many number of visits they have to go through in order to get to know the product better and also ultimately check out and buy that product. This was it. Through the slides, we'll be going through a little demo of GA4 and its capabilities in just a bit. The data that we are using here is the data from a website that Google created. So it's basically I would say, dummy data or something like that. It's an app called Flooded. It's basically just a one-page website. Moving on to its Google Analytics account, you can see here the homepage of Google Analytics and what you can see right when you get in there. You can see here a little bit of a chart speaking about how many users are visiting your website in the last 7 days. You can identify the time range in here, so you can see, like, for example, last 28 days, last month. And you can see that you had like 28K users with a decrease of 1.1% in comparison to the last month. It always compares the last period to the period that you're currently on. How many new users did you receive during that period as well? And you can see about an 8% increase from last month, than the month before this one, and the average engagement time of 10 minutes and 47 seconds. This is such a big number. There isn't a website that can get this high number, I would say, for an average visit time. You can see how many users were visiting your website in the last 30 minutes. These are all charts that are not going to be mostly customizable. The homepage doesn't get customized as much as you would think it can. It just shows a glance of what is currently happening on your website. This is also the user activity over time. You can compare, like, in 1 day, how many users do you get? In 7 days, how many users do you get? And in 30 days. User retention, how many actually come back to your website? And this is the same thing that we just saw. This is a heat map of where users are coming from. And it's sourced also by the country. These are the kind of predictive metrics that Google is currently working on. You can also see the little bit of the logo of the Gemini AI here. I'm not sure if it actually uses Gemini's AI into these kind of insights right here, but I'm pretty sure it follows the same kind of pattern that Google would be using across all its platforms. So you can see here that there are some automatically generated insights of different interactions happening into your website, with a little bit of mix between, for example, iOS usage has spiked from March 10th to 16th. We can see here that there is an increase of user engagement of new users by 14%, things like that. Google's still working on this, so it might get better by the time that you visit Google Analytics yourself. I'm moving on to another section, reports, where you will be mostly spending your time in GA4. It's a little bit overwhelming, the amount of reports that you can see within GA4. So I always suggest that you come up with a question before you dive into this section right here. For example, I want to see how many users visited my website today, how many were new, and how many of these new users, for example, purchased something. So we would go, if I want to know how many users visited my website, I would go into acquisition right here. I would see that new users were like 13K users in the last 28 days. We can customize this into today's. If it can work. Yep. For today, we can see how many users visited. 17 users visited today. 14 of them were direct. 2 were coming from cross network. So basically, they came from another, that came from mobile to desktop, for example, and one of them came from organic search. And you can see here that the user retention is dropping in comparison to the last 42 days. So I basically have answered the question of how many users visited my website today. Let's try to answer the question of how many of those actually purchased something or did a certain event on my website. So we can go into monetization, for example, and go into overview. And we can see the total revenue of purchase revenue, total revenue of 0. No one has purchased something today. And maybe we can take a look at yesterday, see if someone tried to purchase something at that time. If it would let me take 19. Yep. And no one purchased something yesterday as well. We can see the entirety of the month for March right here, and we can also see that there is no one purchasing something, because at the end of the day, the website is not really built for tracking purchases, because it doesn't have any products. This is just all dummy data generated by Google. But we try to understand how many users, not how many, how much revenue was built during the last period. We can go also into a little bit of an advertising segment. I'm not sure if Google has unlocked this for us, but we can see breakdown of where our traffic is coming from. You can see here that there is a portion coming in from paid search and the biggest portion coming in from direct. So you can basically try to understand where users are coming from and how to connect these journeys together. I will go back and see if there is anything that Ajish would like to talk about. And I will hand the spotlight to you, Ajish. I'm not trying to share here. I'm trying to make it a slideshow. It doesn't want to work. I will let Ajish talk a little bit about Web2Market's business.
Yeah, thank you, Sami, for that presentation. It was very comprehensive and quick as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just to give an introduction, we missed that part at the beginning of the webinar. I am the CEO of Web2Market. Sammy is a data analyst working at Web2Market, and we are an e-commerce agency. We help merchants build out their websites, host them, maintain them, help them grow with the help of SEO or any other kind of growth tools. We help them, we consult with them on how better they can improve their site and business overall. We started in 1997, so it's a pretty established business. Um, we have done several projects, more than 500 of them, and we have a great team working across from the US and a few of them outside of the country as well. We design, develop, host, and help you market your e-commerce store essentially. And as we just saw, we help people make informed decisions using data uh, from the analytics and from other sources as well. We are pretty much partnered with all big names in the industry, in the e-commerce industry. So, and these are the few big ones. So, Sami, can we go to the next slide?
Yep.
Yeah, this is a summary of all our services. If you would like to reach out to us, let's go to the next slide, Sami.
And this one is here.
Right. Let's go back to the slide and we can take a few questions if anybody has. I think I can open up the chat and you can type in the question here, or if you raise your hand, I'll try to enable your audio. Are you able to raise your hand? It should be on the top of the meeting.
I can see a question from Judy. How do you access our Google Analytics? Is it from Google account or in our website? Okay. Let me try to answer that. So basically, you try to go through the URL for Google Analytics itself is analytics.google.com. You just have to write this one because if you try to search for it, it's actually pretty chaotic over there. So if you go into analytics.google.com, it will prompt you to log in using a Gmail, and you can then start measuring right away. Like I've used my Gmail right here, and it will lead you into your website, and you can identify which website you're actually tracking the data for you through the admin section on this side panel right here, and you can go into data streams. You can see that this account goes through the flooded app, the URL right here. So this is basically the website itself, because it had that icon of like an internet or global earth icon. You can see here that there's an iOS app as well, and there is an Android app that also receives information, and all that information is being dumped into the same Google Analytics account. Is there any other questions, or have I not answered this one properly? Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
Sammy, I had a question. How, can you like if you have information on Google Tag Manager, how do you, can you briefly explain how it works in tandem with Google Analytics, and how do we capture data from the website? Maybe people might be interested in knowing that.
Yes, I can speak about that a little bit, and what Google Tag Manager does. Basically, instead of having to place a tag each time that you want to track something on your website through Google Analytics, you can put all of that under Google Tag Manager. What I mean by that is you can store other tags as well. Like if you have a few other tracking software like Zoho PageSense, for example, you can place that under the Google Tag Manager tag. So you don't really need a developer to actually to edit the tag every and single time that you would want to edit something off your website data tracking. And also, Google Tag Manager is also an umbrella for the events that you can create through Google Analytics for any custom events that you would want to track. That would be through Google Tag Manager as well. So it's basically like the grandfather of all tracking software, I believe. Judy's asking, where is Google Tag Manager located? I can try to navigate into that with tagmanager.google.com. I haven't really created a tag manager account right here for the purposes of this demo, so I'm sharing the URL for that in the chat, Judy, if you would like to take a look at it.
So essentially, the Tag Manager requires you to just put the tracking code only once in the in your website, and the rest of it can be handled from the Tag Manager software application, right?
Exactly. So you just have to put your code once using Google Tag Manager, and you don't have to edit that code over and over by a developer every time you would want to add more information to enrich your data collection off your website.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeej. Any other questions?
So I think we are coming to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, Julie is asking another question. Let's give her a few minutes.
No problem. Is Google Analytics integrated with Google Business? I'm not really sure about that because I haven't used Google Business before, so I can't really provide a definite answer over here.
Yeah, I would. I would say that, of course, there are undercurrents being the same Google platform. Google My Business uh, does share data with Google Analytics. Um, I think there's provision to set it up in Google My Business. You can you can link basically your Google Analytics account to your Google My Business page.
Thank you for that, Ajish.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judy.
Okay, so we are 4 minutes overdue after the webinar. So if there are no other questions, thank you so much, everybody, for joining the webinar today. And we'll be conducting more webinars for specifically e-commerce merchants in the days to come, or at least one per month or a few per month. Stay tuned. I will be letting you know. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.